Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Core After Hours, where we have only the finest of finest things here. I am your host, Kazari Iwakura. There, is that super villain enough for you?
Let's go with it, baby.
Let's go! Alright. Hey everybody, welcome back to Core After Hours. This is part 2 of me and Jaster's Iceberg that we started. We started with much hubris, I would like to say.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you know what? That's okay, because we've got something to go back to at any time.
Yeah.
If you want to hear the whole spiel about why we made this and what's going on with it, you can go listen to our first part, which should already be out at the time of this episode's release. We're just gonna jump right into it. No preamble.
Yeah.
So we are here on tier.
You know who we be doing.
Yep. So we are here on tier 3 at rocks thrown from the bushes. This is our first tier under the surface of the iceberg. Now, rock throwing is a form of intimidation that Squatches tend to do. It's usually one of the first things that happens if you are in an area and a Squatch doesn't want you to be. It's worth noting that the rock throws are rarely, if ever, directed directly at people. Usually they will pick a sizable rock. Sometimes they're the size of a softball. Sometimes they're small boulders. And they will just toss them into water or nearby somebody to let them know, hey, I'm here. Get the heck away from here. It's usually the first sign that you're not welcome. And after that, if you continue to stick around, that's when you begin to agitate them. And
it's not good for you.
Yeah, so if rock throwing happens, probably best to get out of there.
I'd like to point out that there are some interviews where, like, the uncanny accuracy of the rock throw is brought into question. Like, we're talking about them landing in between people's feet, stuff like that. So, like, it's weird. You get all kinds of different accounts, but it's very, very similar every time. It's like whatever it is using a very human or ape-like communication. That's kind of the whole point. You said, I'll get into the next one, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wait a second. Where were we at?
Top of tier 3.
Top of tier 3?
Far
okay.
left. We were going to start with booger lights.
Right. Okay, I thought we were already on a topic. That's my bad. Let's go ahead and get into the actual first topic here. Booger lights. So this is something I hear about more in the Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee area, and a little bit more in the Appalachian region, where the myriad of different nicknames for Sasquatch are out there. You got boogers, you got boogerman, you got yahoos, you got all kinds of different stuff in here, okay? The boogeyman, like they call him everything out here. So these are a phenomenon associated with Bigfoot, where people see glowing orbs in the woods or off of the sides of cliffs or trailing sides of mountaintops or whatever before coming across a Sasquatch, which is a very interesting thought, because this is kind of you've already kind of got to be listening to Bigfoot accounts or things like that before you start hearing people thinking and connecting the dots on this subject. It's kind of why we put this here. But there are a ton of different accounts of people experiencing weird lights and then Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess we can tackle this next one together, because I got some shit to say about this next one. But you want to get into it?
Yeah. So gifting. So, alright. This is the first time we're gonna make fun of this kind of particular Squatch believer. We've got 2 more spots here on the iceberg where we're gonna make fun of these guys, so we'll get back to this. But gifting is the habit of just leaving out food for Squatches, and we're not talking about sensible things like apples, corn, stuff like that. No. We're talking about cookies and Twinkies,
hard
and
candy
bars,
donuts,
and soda, donuts,
peanut butter.
I think peanut butter kind of toasts the line a little bit.
I mean, it's sugary, which is like an issue. So like, it kind of totes into the belief. Like, this is kind of the far spectrum of Bigfoot is a hominid theory, where people like to think that they're big, fuzzy, furry mountain giants, like especially the kind that like you seen on Henry and the Harrisons. So this is not that creature, okay? Make no mistake. Like, if you are gifting these things, make sure it is like 20 miles from your house, okay? Because there are tons of accounts of these things going 10 to 12 miles, following your car back to your house. If you are way out in the woods and you live rurally, like, be wary of that kind of behavior, because it'll start associating that with you, and that's a problem. Like, there's been accounts of old people gifting and then passing away, and then the next generation moves into that house and they get mad because whoever's living in that house ain't giving them donuts no more or some shit. Like, that is not a good situation.
No.
Like, it's insane to think about, because like, you also got to think about what they're giving these things. They're not giving them, like you said, it ain't cantaloupes, you know? It ain't like, I don't know, apples. Like, that happens more in research groups rather than these like these types. They'll give them rock candy, bro. Apparently that's a huge one that they like. Well, no shit. Like, that thing's packed with so much sugar, and they've never experienced that sensation in their life. Like, we've all experienced sugar high before. They've never have. So that shit's going to hit them hard. So, like, you're going to get these things addicted to sugar, and then the effect these things have on their teeth. And then you're going to wonder why these things start acting mad. Like, bro, you just gave Bigfoot cavities. Like, thank you. Like, that's great. Like, that's going to help you out in the long run. Like, please don't feed these things. Don't be that person.
Do not.
But we'll get into the next topic, which is another location, the Nahanni Valley National Park in Canada.
AKA Valley of the Headless Men. As you may have guessed by the title, this is not a place you want to be. In fact, actually, it's not a place the Canadian government wants you to be. This place is off limits.
It's not a place that the Native Americans who have the rights to the land want to be, because every 10 years they keep moving farther north.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's a whole situation. Like, it is one of those verdant, beautiful places for hunters, fishermen, all this other kind of stuff. Ain't a motherfucker going in there, though.
Nope.
And it's been starting since like the 1700s.
Yeah. Like, it's incredibly rich and lush. You know, it's home to the gorgeous Virginia Falls, you know, the Rabbit Kettle Hot Springs, you know, all these awesome natural landmarks. But
it's considered one of the last big trapping areas on the planet.
But the thing is, people tend to go there and not come back. And we don't mean like, oh, a hiker went missing. I mean, yes, but like, this isn't just a hiker goes missing. We mean like
a hunting party goes missing.
Yeah.
Like, people armed to the teeth going missing. And now, like, there's a myriad of different theories in there, because there's a myriad of different accounts and evidence and first-hand accounts of what might possibly be going on in there. And it leads me personally to believe that there's bad mojo going on in there.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's not great. It doesn't help that this particularly valley within the national park itself is only accessible by river, plane, or foot. No vehicles whatsoever. So,
now, I have a personal theory about what I think what cryptid might be roaming the woods out there. I don't think it's I think Bigfoot might be a part of it, but there's two other possible cryptids that I think are in there, and there's different accounts out there that make me think that might be the case, and they're much rarer and much more weird and dangerous than a Bigfoot. So it goes farther down on the iceberg, baby.
Yeah, but we'll stick a pin in that, and we'll get back to it.
All right, so I guess you want me to
next one? Yes, because this is actually one of our favorite research groups, but Jaster especially gushes about this one a lot.
So these guys are the National Wood Ape Conservancy, or NWAC. These guys are ex-military, ex-police, park rangers, all this other kind of good stuff, who their whole part in this Bigfoot community is that they are the researchers and trained gunmen that are trying to actually hunt and take down a specimen to bring in. Now,
which is the holy grail of this community, because a specimen would legitimize the whole thing into actual science, and would allow for categorization and all that good stuff. And people have been chasing it for years, but it hasn't happened. So,
and what's wild is that these guys are probably, out of all of the groups out there, the most qualified to do the job that they're saying they're out there to do. And
for
they're
sure.
very open about their their operational procedures and their issues and all this other kind of stuff out there. Primarily because as a group that's trying to take a specimen, they're not a bunch of hillbillies in the woods just shooting like crazy. Like, they have designated shooters that are in different firing lanes. They have different operating procedures they have to make sure no one gets injured and no misidentification occurs. Very professional for the situation. And I think if a lot of people want to listen to the types of stuff that they do, you can also listen to them on Sasquatch Chronicles. I think they've been on there at least once or twice. It's very interesting conversations they have out there. But let's go ahead and get into something a little bit up our own territory. And I'll let you hit this one, Kaz. The Rockstar Games Bigfoot Hunt.
Yes, so Rockstar Games is the developer of Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, L.A. Noire. And for the longest time, there was a belief that you could find Bigfoot in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And we put this one on the iceberg in particular because it's the only instance we know of where the two circles of what this podcast is talks about and focuses on intersect.
Right.
Think about the fervor of looking for Bigfoot and researching it, and then apply that to the video game world. Legions of gamers going over every pixel they possibly fucking could in that PS2 game to try and find Bigfoot and not finding it. And here's the thing, Rockstar actually knows about this and started teasing everybody about it.
Right.
For instance, in Red Dead Redemption's DLC, Undead Nightmare, there is a quest where you deal with Sasquatches. And at least in the French version of the game, the achievement you get after completing the quest is CJ, you can finally stop looking.
Oh my god. That's beautiful.
Then also in Grand Theft Auto 5, if you 100% the game, there's one last quest you can do where you find Bigfoot, who turns out to be a guy in a suit who gets off to being Bigfoot.
Like, they're over here joking on the community the whole way home.
In typical Rockstar style. Which is interesting because they kind of have their... Because, really just the GTA Myths and Legends community is very comparable to Cryptid Hunters, in my opinion. Complete with the amount of misinfo and all the varying kinds of people you find and the low production YouTube videos. It's pretty awesome.
Life imitates art, man.
It really does. It really does. So there you have it. Rockstar Games Bigfoot Hunt.
Well, let's get back to the life aspect of this whole thing. And let's get into some Native American folklore. Next big topic here. And personally, where I come from, this was kind of my starting point because of my family background. But Kaz really didn't take the same journey through Bigfoot that I did, and that kind of took me back by surprise. So, you want to get into it a little bit?
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite things to point at when it comes to evidence that Sasquatch is a thing, is pointing to what the peoples of the First Nations of North America address it as in their own folklore. There are many tribes across North America that have different names for it, and I'm talking about many. It's pretty easy to go look up a list for it. And I'm not talking like, oh, this is just Northwestern tribes. These are tribes
Everywhere.
all over the nation. And a lot of them are variants of Wild Man,
Stone Giant,
Big Man, Boss of the Woods, Bushman, Tall Man, Hairy Savage, stuff like
Otter
that.
Man.
So, and of course, this is us saying the translated names because
we're not going to butcher that all over the podcast. We want to save everybody the trouble of that.
Yeah, so, but yeah, no, we point at this a lot because this is, if there's anybody who has the most credibility when it comes to this topic, it's the people who are most in touch with the land, and it's part of their heritage. So, we're taking them at face value. And yeah, and that's that particular bit on the
man
on the iceberg.
I have to get you a soda or something like that.
I wish I had some soda. I'm kind of fucking broke right now. I'm getting paid tomorrow. I've got like $4 left in my account. It's not great.
With that, you can support the podcast. Links in the description.
There you go.
So let's go ahead and get back into it here. A topic that I never really got to get into, but I think you're a little more familiar. It's the old show In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. I think they had an episode on the Bigfoot. But like, it didn't really contribute as much to the Bigfoot topic as some of the more modern shows.
Yeah, this was during the Sasquatch craze of the 70s. In Search Of originally aired from 1977 to 1982, and it was hosted by Leonard Nimoy. And it was actually funded by Alan Landsberg, who wrote the Ancient Astronauts book Chariots of the Gods, which, by the way, is a bunch of bunk. I'm going to say that right now. It is a load of garbage. I have read that book myself. It is a whole lot of nonsense. Oh my god. But it did talk about a lot of things that are still talked about to this day in cryptozoology, ufology, all that good stuff. Funnily enough, they actually revived it in 2018 with Zachary Quinto, who played Spock in the new movies. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down with that. Okay.
Yeah, but these were short, not even half-hour episodes of television that would run weekly, and well, they originally began as a series of 3 specials over the course of 1973 to 1975, and those were a big hit, and that's when In Search Of was born. Bigfoot was episode 5, April 28th, 1977.
Okay.
So.
Way back in the day.
So.
Yeah, my mom would have been like 8, I think, whenever that would happen. Long time ago, so.
Yeah, so. There you go. That's In Search Of. One of the OGs.
All right. So let's go ahead, and you want to get into...
I'll let you take this one.
All right. I got you. So I'll go ahead and cover this one. It's one of my favorite types of sightings. Road crossing sightings. All right. Because, like, there is such a variety of quality when it comes to these things, because most of the time it's like some dude's driver cam footage, or like somehow he managed to have his phone out and hit the record button or something because he had like one of those setups on his steering wheel or on his dash, you know what I mean? And it's never great quality, but this is the type of footage where dude's on some back road that no one really can tell where it is, what it is, and then all of a sudden some blob squatch comes crossing the road. Now, there are other types of videos of road crossing sightings where people are on ATVs or on even walking on foot, and those are obviously a lot better quality than anybody who's driving their Ford Taurus down an unpaved back road in Alabama. You know,
Yeah.
that's not going to be too hot, you know, on the shaky. So it's one of my favorite things to watch because, like, some of those, like the reaction of some of these entities whenever they get caught over there, it gets wild. Like some of the stuff they do, some of the movements they make is just crazy to me.
Hey, do you know the one that got hit and then like they're looking at it through their rear view camera?
No.
Yeah, you do. Thinker Thunker did a video about it.
Okay, okay.
So I was talking to somebody recently about it, and actually they say that there actually might be more than one Squatch in that because they allege that there are at least two more trying to hold the Squatch that runs at the car back. And I went back and looked at it, and so the problem is that this is very much a blob Squatch because this is somebody using their phone to record their screen of their rear view camera on their car.
Right.
So already we have like at least
you got multiple levels of grayness and weirdness going on.
Yeah. But honestly, I was looking at the right of it, and I could see at least one more entity there, because there's this bit where you see like a palm, and I was like, oh my god. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so just wanted to bring that up.
The one thing about that dash cam video is the face on that thing is a lot more in line with the kind of creatures that I hear in a lot of eyewitness testimony. Where these things don't, like Patty's one type of Bigfoot, but this is the other type of Bigfoot that looks a lot weirder because it doesn't have as much hair on its face. And these things, that's the kind of one that really gets me the heebie-jeebies. I'd rather see a type 1 than a type 2. And we'll get into more of that later. But I'll let you get into the next one because I'm not as...
So the next one on the list is Lauren Coleman. Lauren Coleman is a very prominent author of many things paranormal, but typically cryptozoology. Where the fuck are all these yawns coming from? Jesus Christ.
So we got him some caffeine, bro.
He is, in my opinion, a leading cryptozoologist, and he's been at it since, first off, he studied anthropology and zoology, as well as psychiatric social work, and has studies in doctoral level anthropology and sociology.
So the man's learned.
Incredibly learned. I would put him up there in terms with like Dr. Jeff Meldrum in terms of credibility. But he has been criticized a little bit. But he's written a whole lot of books, and he runs a cryptozoology museum up in Maine, Portland, Maine. So, pretty cool.
Okay, I got you. So, I guess let's get into the topic which this whole tier is based off of, the phenomenon of rock throwing.
I mean, we kind of went into it at the start.
Fair. I'd say
I don't think we need to explain it again.
Just be careful out there is the only thing I would say.
Be very careful, y'all. Our last one on this tier is Portlock, Alaska, which is one we found out about recently and are absolutely fascinated by.
It's a whole phenomenon. Like, the people involved, the stories involved, the whole show based off of it, Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. There's a whole lot going on with this story. It's almost like the town itself, even though no one lives there, its whole legend is based around Bigfoot. Anything anybody knows about it is Bigfoot. Or I think it's called the Nantinak to them.
Yes, Nantinak, yes. I believe that's how they pronounce it.
So,
but yeah, Portlock is a ghost town in Alaska located on the southern edge of the Kenai Peninsula, which is about 16 miles south of Seldovia, which is a city in Alaska. The definition of city is extremely loose in Alaska because like Seldovia doesn't even have 300 people there, but that's a pretty big settlement for Alaska.
True.
So,
I mean, there's like Juneau and Anchorage, but I think that's about it.
That's pretty much it, yeah. So Portlock was an active cannery community in the early 20th century, mainly for salmon. It was named after Captain Nathaniel Portlock, who was a British ship captain who sailed there in 1786. They opened a post office there in 1921. But in the 1940s, several sheep hunters disappeared in the hills outside the town. And shortly after, dismembered bodies of some of the mission began washing ashore in the lagoon. It also didn't help that there was a fire at the cannery as well.
It didn't work out. Like,
no.
There's a history of this town not working out and people resettling it.
Yeah. People began to flee the town en masse, and by the early 50s, the town was completely deserted. A lot of the people who lived there blamed it on Nantinak, which is a Sasquatch-like entity in their local folklore there.
Yes. And like I know in the show, there's a lot of Hollywood dramatizations and stuff going on in there. A lot of Hollywood effects, but like the one thing that did seem to be the most obvious is that the people that live there believe in whatever it is happening to them is real. Like I think that's the biggest takeaway, and I think that's a big takeaway for a lot of Bigfoot encounters is like you hear a lot of people saying, I used to think that Bigfoot might be real and now I know. You know, like there's a lot of people that say I'm a Bigfoot knower, not a believer. You know, like
Nantinak is very dangerous according to them. Very malicious as well, but that's really all we're going to get into because if you want to learn more about it, just go watch the TV show, which admittedly is a lot of smoke and mirrors, but you do learn some legitimate history of the area while watching it, and it's a pretty fun watch. Go check it out. We recommend it.
It's at least worth your time for the entertainment value.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. We were hooked from start to finish.
All right, so that wraps it up for this this tier anyway.
Yep. So we're gonna head down to tier 4, which we have described as the very nice air quotes odors known as Squatch stink. We have kind of mentioned Squatch odors before, so we don't really need to talk about it too much. We're just gonna dive right in. Jaster, what can you tell me about the Gugwe?
All right. So we've been talking about types of Bigfoot, right? And like the whole concept kind of originated around the pretense that a lot of these people be talking about the same kind of Bigfoot, right? But there's also different variations and different kinds of them. And there are certain ones that are very famous in the local regions. And the Gugwe tends to be a type. And I think most of the time it's in more of the northern parts of the world, but allegedly it's a type of Bigfoot that's a little bigger, but it has a very pointed snout, kind of like a baboon. And just like the baboon, it's an asshole. Like, it is one of the types of them that does not like humans, likes to steal animals, and it is very, very shitty to the surrounding area. So, like, a lot of people attribute the more aggressive and shitty Bigfoot experiences to this type, enough so that it's kind of more of a widespread occurrence than it being just one specific monster or one specific group of them. It seems to be a subspecies, which is why it kind of gets its own thing. Because you hear about them as far as, like, some of them even show up in Texas, allegedly. So, like, we'll see. We'll see. Because, like, it's a weird one. You really don't want to see these things. Like, this is the one that you really don't want to see out of the Bigfoot ones. Like, there's a couple of other variants and different cryptids out there. This one's up there with the dog man. You don't want to see this one in the back alleyway.
No, sir. No.
All right, so let's go ahead. I'll pass the buck over to you for the next one.
So, bent trees. Bent trees are a potential sign of Sasquatch habitation in an area. Now, it's worth noting that trees can bend naturally, be it from weight from frost or just strong winds. However, when we mention bent trees, it's a very specific style of bent trees. Basically, these are smaller trees, not quite saplings, but a little bit older than that have been pulled over, and the topmost branches have basically been dug into the ground so that they make an arch.
And they're snapped at like 8 feet.
Stuff like that, yeah. And basically, if you do find these, not more often than not, you're going to find another one not too far from it. And what these essentially are is Sasquatch highways, or at least that's what researchers tend to believe, and I certainly believe in the theory.
Certain markers. Like I've heard about them being certain of them being territorial markers.
Territorial markers, just pathways, whatever the case. We know that it happens. So.
Absolutely. All right. So give me a second. I got to do something.
Go ahead.
I got to do something before we do it. Okay. We got to
Gotta get the light in.
Because we're getting into a topic. Okay. Military kill teams. We're going to break into one of the myriad of crazy conspiracies here. Because you can't get a good conspiracy here in America without involving the U.S. government. All right, so a lot of people ask, well, if this thing's been around for so long, and there's been people out there with guns for so long, why ain't we shot one yet? And like a lot of people say, oh, well, we probably have. And then they also get people that come forward with a lot of background information about the military that other people in civilian life might not know, that say they're on military kill teams where they have a problem animal and they get a call and they go in and they take care of problem animal. Now, I think that's probably, if you were thinking on it like purely logistically, if the government's handling most of these things that get out of hand, it would make more sense as to why no one talks about these things. So, like, it starts a bigger conversation in your mind. Because there have been multiple times where, allegedly, national parks have been shut down whenever certain sightings of either Bigfoot or Dogman occur. And then convoys of military vehicles go up there, and then they get airlifted out.
Yep.
So like it's a weird rabbit hole to get into. It's a legend. Okay, don't unalive me. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's allegations about these existing for dogmen as well.
Which for dogmen, definitely agree, needed. Okay, if my tax money's going towards that, okay, cool, I'm down with it.
Yep. Dogmen are vicious fuckers. I'm okay with there being dogman kill teams. So
probably need those.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get into another wild rabbit hole. All right, you want me to hit this one too, or do you want to do this one?
Yeah. Let's see here. Hang on, I'm fine. You handle this one.
Alright, so well within the world of Bigfoot, okay, the community of Bigfoot, there lie a group of people that try to make $1 out of a dime, okay? Now, sham artists, we all know them, some of us love them, we all take away from them in one way or another. And Bigfoot's no different, okay? Some people like to try to get themselves financial compensation for taking people out in the woods to quote-unquote see a Bigfoot. Now, doing this on private property is perfectly fine, okay? The issue is that some of these individuals like to get onto government property, especially down in Texas, I'm not going to raise too many names because like there's a whole issue, like dudes dragging the federal government to court for defamation, everything. I'm not going to bring it
Yep.
all up, so I'm not going
Yeah.
to get us in here. But apparently the government did not like the fact that he was getting money on public property for these things, whether or not they're real or not. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So after a long time, they were like, okay, you can go to this area or this area. And the dude didn't want to go to those areas for one reason or another. Okay, so it started a whole stink in the Bigfoot community. A whole lot of whole can of worms got open.
Yep.
And it started this whole thing because the Bigfoot community's got to watch out for these kind of people because it's so easy for these types to worm their way into a conversation like this. So everybody needs to just watch out. Don't buy a $4,000 Bigfoot hunt. Don't do it.
Yeah. Don't do it. Come on, man. You're better off just getting some of your own gear and going out to a national park with a bud, which honestly is the real way to do it, anyways. Because even if you don't see a Sasquatch, hey, you get to go on a hike with a friend. So what's not to love about that?
My favorite saying is you don't find Bigfoot, Bigfoot finds you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. There you
So
go.
I'll let you get into the next topic.
So we mentioned earlier at the start of this episode that we were going to be making fun of these people, and this is a subset of the community who does the gifting. We call them flute players. Jaster, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Alright, so this one is a bit wild because, like, it's kind of like the side of the community that's a little bit more grounded in realism likes to poke fun at the hippie type Bigfoot believer, and they call them flute players because they like the joke is like, oh, these guys think that Bigfoot's like a Harry and Henderson's big mountain giant playing a flute out in the woods and serenading all the animals, when in reality this thing's like stealing livestock, stealing personal like pets, everything, trying to take kids out out of bedrooms in some stories, breaking into all kinds of crap. These things just give people a hard time. And so like a lot of people think, oh, well, you think that they're like nice and furry mountain giants, you're kooky, you know. And that's kind of where the whole topic comes into play. And so like the big thing about the community is like we need to all get along a little bit better, but we all need to realize that like one of these two groups is full of shit. Alright?
Yeah.
And like given the vast majority of the evidence that I've come across in testimonies, I'm leaning on the not a furry mountain giant. Like,
Yeah.
not good.
Mm-hmm.
Like man or ape, I wouldn't want to fuck with him in the woods without a big
sir.
gun.
No.
So let's see here. What's the next one we got here?
The Yowie.
I'll let you get into this one.
So the Yowie, spelled Y-O-W-I-E. No, I do not. I am not referring to Japanese boys love dojins. Is the Australian equivalent of Sasquatch. He's mean. I mean, appropriate because he's Australian.
But he
It's
got
in
to
the
be out here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like
What little okay, so first off, it's worth mentioning that there are communities in Australia dedicated to researching the Yowie, and from what I know, from what brief contact I have had with these communities, because I mean, yeah, they speak English, but you know, like it's still
Not
international
ours.
internet, in that they kind of congregate in their own places. And, I mean, you can go find them if you go looking for them, but anyways, Yowies are aggressive. They're up there with like Gugways and Dogmen. They ain't friendly.
Agreed.
A
A lot more aggressive encounters because they probably have a lot less food to get to. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of the prevailing theory with the northwestern Bigfoots being a lot less aggressive, is there's a lot more food up there for them. Skunk ape being a little bit less so because all the food that it does want to eat wants to kill it too. So like the food that a certain creature is around tends to do something with its personality. And like I don't doubt it, because like Australia's the continent that wants to kill you, man. Why wouldn't the Bigfoot be that much worse? You know, you want me to tackle this next one?
Which was this? Let's see here. Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So, allegedly, our boys in green that served in Vietnam came across incidents of what the locals would refer to as rock apes. And there's a couple of stories, but the biggest one revolves around a platoon or a company that was trying to ambush some fleeing soldiers, and something else got to them first. And it, like, they were trying to set an ambush, and the other side just erupted into gunfire, and it wasn't in their direction. And there were just wild screams, sounds like tons of bulldozers going through the woods. And then the Americans came into view of these 7-foot tall, giant, blacky haired, blocky apes that were just beating the shit out of these Vietnamese soldiers, and they started turning on the Americans too. So that's when a 3-way fight occurs. Everybody takes heavy casualties, and the Americans pull out of there, like fucking astounded by what just happened. And whenever whenever you get back to base, all that other kind of stuff, like, you know, we're not supposed to really talk about this kind of stuff that happens, but, like, allegedly there are other groups and other people across that area of the Cambodian, Laos, Vietnamese area that had also had issues with these sorts of things. And these rock apes had been around a long time, and the locals knew about them. So it's another instance of local Bigfoot, but local Bigfoot in the middle of a war zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, you want to tackle the next one? It's a good one.
Yes, I do. So next is the Ohio Howl, which is one of our first audio ones on here. We've got 2 more ones on here. So the Ohio Howl is something I haven't listened to in a while, but it's one of the more well-known recorded instances of Sasquatch calls. I mean, that's really all I can say about it.
No, that's fair. There's more than a few quote-unquote famous audios that are out there.
It's about what, like 40 seconds worth of audio or so, or a little bit under that.
Right. And
it was recorded it was recorded on the Ohio River, and yeah,
it's a little spooky because, like, if anybody has heard anything like that, you also hear in the background of that background of the audio, that there's some dogs barking, and then as soon as that thing starts going off, all the dogs just shut up.
Yep.
And, like, if you start hearing other audio clips, that stuff starts to happen a lot. Like, I was hearing the one that kind of scared me, because this woman's cat is kind of like, there's only a screen really protecting it in the outside world, and she's kind of out there with it, and they're recording. And this thing has to be, like, within 100 yards of her neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I'm like, get that cat inside, please. Like, please.
Absolutely, yeah.
But there's a few other ones, we'll talk about them a little bit later. But if you ever hear a lot of documentary footage, or you ever hear about Bigfoot whenever you're starting to get into it, this is probably the first audio recording that you probably see singled out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little higher up on this list. Now, the next topic, I'll get into it a little bit. Squatch stink. We kind of got into it a little bit, but Bigfoot is known for being worse than smelling death. Like, most predatory animals don't smell well whenever they're around in the forest. But apparently Bigfoot's smell has this ability to almost be within a certain radius. Like, you step outside of its circle, you can't smell it anymore. But when you do smell it, it hits you like crazy. And like we said before, the skunk ape's kind of known for this. But all squatches tend to have some sort of odor associated with them. And if you're living way out in the woods, you ain't got like shampoo or soap, can't blame you. You know what I mean? But I'll let you wrap this topic here up, because it's probably our favorite one, and the one that really kind of started the ball on this whole project. So, I guess I'll go ahead and get into it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of starting to lose steam here, so I'd like to wrap this up.
You're all good. So, the last one on this iceberg, or this layer, is Bigfoot the game. So this is the one that kind of started it all, allowing us to be able to talk about it on this platform. It's a bunch of guys out of Ukraine decided to make a Bigfoot game. And let's be honest, it's probably one of the most accurate depictions of Bigfoot that we've seen in a long time in media. Like, they do their research, they try, and they do a really good job. So if you like what you hear in here, and you like the show, and you want to try it out on YouTube, watch some videos of that, it's a cheap game, it supports a great cause, and man, it's a good game. Like, we always have a great time. But speaking of great times, we had a great time recording this part of the iceberg. Thank y'all for listening. If you like the podcast, you want to hear or see more of us, you can check us out on Twitch or Twitter or on YouTube. Our links are going to be in the descriptions. Thank y'all. Y'all have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.